All right, welcome back to the Pitch Podcast. My name is Eric Wobina. I am the president of the Baseball Blue Book, and we're excited today to have Gabriel Hildebrandt with us with the Hildabrand Bat Co. Gabriel and we met, I guess, on social media, and was pretty excited about his product and his story, and wanted to have him on the pitch to learn a little bit more about himself as well as his company. Gabriel, how are you today?
Doing well, Eric. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Well, Gabriel, before we begin, I want to encourage everyone to make sure that they are downloading the Baseball Blue Book app. You'll find everything that you need about this podcast, as well as Hildabrand Bat Co, as well as Gabriel in the app. Also follow us on social media platforms. You can, if you're listening to this on Apple or Spotify, we're excited. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel. And if you're on YouTube, make sure to subscribe, like, and comment. We love our followers and the audience that we are bringing this to. So, Gabriel, let's do a little introduction. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into this.
Yeah. So my name is Gabriel Hildabrand. I'm from Nashville, Tennessee, born and raised in Nashville. Started Hildabrand Bat Co my junior year of high school. So 19 years old, had it since junior year. So we're going on 2.5 years now. It's an absolute passion of mine. I can't imagine doing anything else for the rest of my life. I eat, sleep, breathe baseball bats. So
that's awesome. Well, you know what? Being 19 years old and already finding that passion, that's pretty exciting. A lot of people, they go through 4 years of school, masters, and maybe even a doctorate, and they still don't know what they want to do. So finding out that this is going to be your passion and what you want to do early on is there's a lot of value to that. And I'm excited to talk to you about it. I talk to a lot of business owners from all ages, and I think you might be the youngest. And so congratulations on that. This is going to be a lot of fun. Gabriel, tell us a little bit about what sparked the idea to start not only a bat company, but actually a company, right? What made you go, this is what I want to do? Some people do bats more of a hobby on the side, but you actually took that passion and turned it into a business. Give us a little bit of background behind that.
Yeah. So for a little more context, I played a year of college baseball. So my entire life, from the time I turned 6 to just this past year, my life has been just strictly baseball. So with travel baseball, how big it's gotten now, I think I was 13 when I started doing travel baseball, like real travel baseball, not the local tournaments, going to Lake Point and going to East Cobb down in Georgia. I started doing that when I was 13, and our 14U season is when we started swinging wood bats. And so I had a couple of wood bats. It was a Mizuno brand and then an Academa back when they were still making wood bats. And they had a wood bat that I really, really liked, and I used that for a year and I broke it. And it made me sad because I really liked that wood bat a lot. And my dad, he's really, really big into woodworking, and he bought a lathe and he's like, hey, I think I can make wood bats. And so, I didn't really do a whole lot of woodwork with him. It just wasn't my thing at the time. When you're 14, 15, you want to play video games. You don't want to do woodwork in the garage. And so he made several wood bats for me. And the first Hildabrand bat, which at the time wasn't even a company, it was just a piece of wood that Dad turned on the lathe. I hit my first home run at Lake Point my freshman year. And so that started to garner some interest from different colleges. And so I used our wood bats all the way through high school. And I got to my junior year of high school. I actually ended up transferring from a local private school to a big 4A public school here in Nashville. And I had a lot of friends that were entrepreneurially minded. They started talking about how they wanted to do this and do this. And I didn't really have an idea of what I wanted to do, but I knew from a young age I wanted to start a business. And I figured that was probably the time to take the step at 16, 17, as crazy as that sounds. And looking back, it feels a little crazy. And so me and my best friend, we were on the phone one day, and I was like, hey, I think I want to try and sell baseball bats. He's like, dude, go for it. And so I started selling baseball bats. I made an Instagram account, had a couple buddies of mine that they're at Middle Tennessee State University playing baseball now. bought a couple from me, and they looked terrible. They were awful. I don't know why they bought them from me. It's like a cheap Lowe's paint. Um, but they bought them from me, and so it kind of took off from there. They were super cheap. A lot of it was just to get reps in. I'm a big believer in volume. The more you do, the better you get at something. And so, over time, I got better at making the bats, and so I started looking around, and I'm like, I think if I do this long enough, and I do it the right way, I think I can make a career out of it. I love doing it. I spend all my time thinking about how to make the product better. Um, and so yeah, that's kind of how I got into it. And we'll go into the organization side, I'm sure, here in a minute, but that's kind of what got me into it.
Well, that's exciting. So your dad, really, your dad made the first Hildabrand bat, just with
Hmm.
the lathe machine, and you started using it. Your first bats that you made personally, you said for Middle Tennessee State, some buddies of yours that used it. You talked about some cheap Lowe's paint. You threw some things together. Kind of go into that first product. What did you have in mind, and what did you learn from that kind of that first batch of bats that you made?
I learned that it was harder than it looks. They. I wouldn't even say it's that difficult. It's just extremely tedious. It's because you have the product turned. So I actually had a company that has a CNC, and I contract all the work out to them to actually turn the models that I want. So I get the product in before, or I get the product in after it's in billet form. So then I go into the finishing process, and at the time, all I did was put it on the lathe, stain the handle, get some cheap lacquer, apply it, and that was it. I didn't give any time to cure. Like a day after I finished it, I let him swing it. And of course, the lacquer's coming off, the
Yeah,
stains coming out of the wood. Um, like on the end where the knob should be, there was nothing. So you could see where I put the bat on the lathe. It had like indentions in it was really bad. Um, but from then on, the first 20 or 30 or 40 bats, it's just trial and error. Do you hang and spray? Do you spray it on the lathe? Do you hand paint? And I mean, I've tried every spray or every painting technique you could think. I've sprayed, I've dipped, I've hand painted, I've done everything. And so that was, I think, the biggest lesson early on was just learning like what's the most efficient way to make baseball bats. When you're doing 400 or 500, 600 bats a year, how can you get crank bats out, and then also maintain quality. But really early on, it was just learning how to make a good product.
right.
And I'd say the first 50 to 60 bats I did were not good, not good at all. So
So you talk about the trial and error part, and any business, right? There's a lot there. There may be mentors that you have. There's other people that have done it, and then certainly in the wood bat world, there's a lot of people that have done it. Is there anyone that you've
mm,
kind of aspired to be like, or followed their path, or and you talked about kind of just trial and error. Did you get ideas from other people of how to do it, and then you kind of figured out what worked best for you, or was it just kind of I'm just jumping in with both feet and just kind of figuring this thing out?
yeah, in the beginning, it was jump head first in and just try things.
Yeah,
But as I learned quickly, that's not the most optimal strategy. And so with me being in Tennessee, Old Hickory's 30 minutes away from me. It's not far. And so I watched a lot of their YouTube videos early on, um, just trying to pick up different strategies. Obviously, they're not going to tell you the paint and the clear coat they're using, but you know they'll show a video of them, spraying a bat. Oh, okay, I could spray. Or if I want to do more than one bat, I should hang, and then you gotta find different products to use to actually hang the bat on. Um, but I'd say once I started figuring out, okay, this is how you cut logos, and this is how you engrave, and you should use this clear coat and this technique. Job bats, Jacob Walters, which you've had on before. I think we talked about this. His product is awesome, and I absolutely love what they're doing up there. And so as far as looking up to a company, I would say they're probably the company I look up to the most. Very similar story. Started in college or started in high school, carried it over into college, and now he's 13, 14 years in, and they've got a monster up there in Kansas. So I'd say they were probably a point or they were a company that I looked up to early on and still look up to now.
that's awesome. What were some of the obstacles that you ran into early on besides just the trial and error and kind of just trying to figure this thing out? And then also, what was one of the big wins that you had that kind of made you uh, realize that, you know what, I can do this, and gave you some confidence for success?
Yeah, so I'll actually start with the win first,
Okay.
um, because senior year of high school, I started talking to my first travel organization, um, and it was, in the beginning I was selling B2C, directly to consumer, just like every other company would, um, but I started talking to an organization I actually played travel ball for 4 years, and they're like, "Hey, we kind of like your bats, with you playing for this organization." All the way up through high school, I think it'd be really cool to have your bats in the organization. And we started talking about different deal structures, um, uh, and that was when I realized, I could sell 150 bats to one organization, and just do bats for them, and it clicked like a light bulb flipped on, and I realized instead of trying to sell 150 bats to 150 different people, I've got to convince two or three people that the bats are good, um, convince them that it adds value to the organization, um, sign a contract, and you got 150 orders.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of I'd say that was where I realized I could do this for a living. I didn't have to convince 150 or 200 or 250 people to buy a bat from me. I had to convince one person. And I switched the business model from B2C to B2B, and that's where things started to take off. And I say take off. The biggest challenge was getting that first organization. When you're a startup, nobody knows who you are. 18-year-old kid coming up saying, "Hey, we want to sell bats to all 200 of your players." You're like, "What in the world? What are you talking about? We're not going to buy bats from you. Do you even have a business? Are you actually selling the product?" Like, I don't, people kind of, they look at you differently when you're young, and so I had to be prepared going into conversations with organization owners, knowing that I was a lot younger. So getting that first organization was the hardest. Once I got the first organization, though, it took off. I signed three this year in 3 months, and then signed three more in a week. So
It's a great business.
yeah, I'd say that was.
That's a great change, especially being as young as you are to realize that as quickly as you did. From a business perspective, is this an acumen from parents? Was there a mentor, somebody in school, or is this just kind of something that you've always had and kind of applied it to what you're doing today?
um, like, as far as, I don't understand the
just
question.
just understanding from a business perspective.
Oh, yeah.
Learning business, right? A lot of people go to school, business, all these things. You're
Mhm.
picking up these concepts pretty quickly and early on. What was it? Was that just simply something that you figured out on your own, or did you have some guidance, some
Mhm.
experts around you that kind of helped you with that?
Yeah, so I'd say there were a few people in my life directly and a few people indirectly. So, I'll start with the closest person, which is my father. He's pretty high up in a pretty big business. He's a service director, and so a lot of the day to day operations, with the business. Anytime I had a question, he'd say, "Hey, this is what you should do," or he'd see something that I'm doing and say, "Hey, that's you shouldn't do that," or "You should do this." Especially with like contract negotiations, these guys, when you're talking to 40, 45-year-old men, there's things that they see that I don't. So having another opinion, in my back pocket, that was really valuable to me. And then, one of the reasons why I switched from B2B to B2C, I had a mentor. I say mentor. He was a small group leader at my church when I was in high school, and he had a business. They did like commercial, or no, they did residential sealing for houses, like they sealed houses, and their business model was very, very similar. They would go to builders and they'd say, "Hey, we do this service. We can do it for all of your houses." And so I just took that concept and applied it to organizations. And so, well, I only have to convince people. That's a lot easier than trying to convince 150 people. Um, and so that was also another reason why I switched. And then I listen to more podcasts and read more books than any 19-year-old that I know. So again, a lot of it goes back to volume, just listening and reading and listening and reading. And over time, I've picked up on things.
That's great. That's great. No, it's a concept that very few people understand. I always laugh when just driving around. I'm an entrepreneur, started a lot of businesses, and doing what I do, you learn a lot of things. But my favorite is lawn care. I watch these guys trying to start a lawn care company, and they go house to house. And I said, why don't you just go to a neighborhood and go to the HOA and say, we're going to give a discount for everyone, because you literally have 4 different companies coming into the same neighborhood and mowing different lawns right next to each other. And I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. So it's almost the same as with a bat, right? I can sell one bat to this one kid on this team, another bat for over here, or I can sell everybody that and go, like you said, talk to the 1 or 2 people, prove what you've done. That goes right into kind of the next question and talks about the separation of you versus others. You talked about Old Hickory just being down the road from you, Job Bat's doing it. I mean, there are a lot of independent bat manufacturers now. It is really the big thing. I always refer to it as kind of the microbrews of baseball, which is cool. But it also, there's a lot of competition. Talk about what separates you from the others, and maybe if there isn't any separation, what separates you, not just the bat, from other people.
Yeah. So, the product itself, I mean, we're from a paint and finishes standpoint, I'd say we're on par with a lot of the big name brands, the Job Bats, the Old Hickories. I've kind of I think we've separated ourselves from some of the independent bat manufacturers at this point from a quality standpoint. But from a business model standpoint, we are completely different. We don't run ads to any of our landing pages. And the only reason why we have an order page on our website is to use internally with our organizations. So if a kid wants to buy a bat on there, he sees the company, like if people see this podcast and they say, hey, I want to buy Hildabrand Bat, they can buy one, but we're not running ads to it. So,
right.
Our business model is what separates us. The quality of wood is the same as any other company or any other bat that you're going to get from another company. But you're getting it at a fraction of the price. So, a marketplace average for custom wood bats anywhere from 200 to 210 to 220. And it's just because the work that goes into customizing a wood bat, it's a lot of labor, a lot of different product, but we've been able to lower our costs to a point where, we can sell a custom bat at $100 and sell it to 200 players on an organization. It's a value additive for the organizations, at the end of the day, especially here in Middle Tennessee, down south, especially. There are so many organizations, and it's really easy for a player to look at organization A and organization B and say, well, they're the exact same.
Right.
The only difference is price. Whereas if you've got organization C, they've got a partnership with us, maybe a grip partnership with another company and a partnership with this company, all of a sudden it's like, yeah, it might cost a little more to play for them, but they've got XYZ that adds so much more value to them. And that's kind of where we come in. Our goal is to add value to the organization so that they can continue to pull players from all over in a very, very competitive market.
That's awesome. We are the Pitch Podcast. My name is Eric Wilbenaugh, the owner of the Baseball Blue Book. We have Gabriel Hildabrand on with the Hildabrand Bat Co. Talking about his bat company, kind of his start. The question now, Gabriel, is, it's really not a question, but you brought up a really good point on value add. A lot of these travel organizations, the teams out there, they are looking at a value add. You brought up, it was a perfect point. Team A, Team B, what are they doing different, right? What value are they bringing, and why would a player go from one to the other? And I think a lot of times people lean towards win-loss, the kids of where they've committed to, but you know what? Everybody has that as well, right? So now you've got a lot of winning teams, you've got a lot of kids that are getting placed and committed to different schools. So that value add is very, very important, and bringing the bat to that is a very important. So any organizations, teams out there, you need to make sure you check out Gabriel and the Hildabrand Bat Co. In talking about value, and it's doing it a little bit different than others. Let's talk about that from the product perspective. And we talked off air on this. Job Bats, love what he's doing up there, but it's really customized. Those are some sweet paint jobs. I can't imagine pumping out 100, 200 bats the way that you're doing it with the B2B model. You're able to maybe be as creative as Jacob is. Talk about your product and kind of how are you able to do this from a B2B perspective?
Yeah, so we go to just for some more context, we're in 6 travel baseball organizations across the Southeast. So this is just the experience that we've had this far. So we go to organization A and we say, hey, we want to put a partnership together. Put the partnership together, we find the price. And then whenever player fees start to collect, and they put that tack our player fee onto the players, whatever the discounted price is, they pay that initial player fee. We get a check and we start to fulfill their order. And so each player will get a player order form. And we're not doing the custom Chick-fil-A bats or the crazy Nike shoe bats or anything like that. But all the colors are customizable. You can have whatever color handle you want, whatever color barrel, any color splatter, any kind of fade, all the way down to the type of engraving, to the color of the logo itself. So when we say it's customizable, it's any color you want, any type of engraving, anything in the engraving. So like I said, it's not the crazy jaw bats customs. That's kind of where they are unique.
Yeah.
They're able to do that and do that at scale. We're doing something maybe we're scaling it back a little bit from a customization aspect, but we're ramping up the scale as far as like who we're marketing it to, which is these organizations.
That's great. And I would think from a wood bat perspective, there's a difference between having kind of a customized bat that you may or may not use. You might use it at particular times, but the more wood bat leagues that are actually coming out, kids are at an earlier age. They're being introduced to wood bats. It is quantity, right? You got to have quality, but you got to have the model of having quantity in there. Wood bats break, and almost like the aluminum bats that you're going to have multiple bats, and paying $200, $300, $400, $500 a bat. That's a tough one, especially when they break, and you got to have another one on in the back for that. Yeah. So I love the model. It kind of follows what's happening in the world of baseball. Talk a bit about just maybe do you have or are you spending any time on the education, or are the teams already doing the wood bat? Are you going to teams and going, hey, wood bats is a great thing to do? Or are you kind of following the trend, as we were just talking about, that wood bat tournaments are becoming more and more commonplace?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't gone to an organization yet, at least on the East Coast. The West Coast is a little different. I haven't gone to any organization so far on the East Coast where they're 14, 15-year-olds and up aren't playing in wood bat tournaments. Okay. West Coast baseball, they have the scout teams. It's a little different over there. But here on the East Coast, tournament baseball rules with Lake Point and PBR and Perfect Game. You got Perfect Game facilities in Nashville and Atlanta and not in Florida. You almost don't see a metal bat tournament anymore. You just don't. You'll see it in high school. Obviously, high school baseball is not wood bat. Maybe up in the New England states, there's some wood bat leagues, but I mean, you don't see any metal bat tournaments anymore. So yeah. It's all predominantly wood bat.
Isn't that crazy? It's funny. You got the wood bats are becoming very, very common at the younger age. Then you go to college and it's all metal bats. Mm-hmm. And yep. Just give me your feedback of why do you think that is? Why do you think that the wood bat is becoming such a popular kind of a direction for the younger players?
Yeah, so I would say, the 9 to 12U age bracket, the kids that are using wood bats are predominantly using them for training purposes. The sweet spot's a lot smaller, yep. Wood's a little bit heavier. They're using it as a training tool. Whereas when you get to 13, 14U, I think scouts want to see, at least this is what I've been told as a former college player myself. College scouts want to see kids swinging wood bats because it separates the good hitters from maybe the average hitters. If you get a lot of metal bat, like I swung the goods in high school. The sweet spot's the entire barrel of the bat. You can hit a ball in the end and one hop the fence. Whereas with a wood bat, if you hit it off the end, you're going to break it and it's a ground ball to shortstop or ground ball to third base. So I think it separates like the really talented players from maybe the average or maybe sub-average or subpar players, and it makes it easier to recruit.
No, that's really important. I follow a number of guys on X, and it's always a topic that comes up every summer. And one of the things that I hear all the time is, yeah, wood bat is you're going to be in wood bat tournaments. You're going to be playing with wood bat. You have to get strong. And so, as an expert in the field, talk a bit about the difference. You talked about the sweet spot being smaller. You've talked about the weight of it, but it really is, like you said, it separates the people between the good hitters and the bad hitters, and it takes strength. So, expand a little bit about kind of your experience of watching these kids learning and embracing the wood bat.
Yeah, I mean, I do some lessons on the side. I've got a kid that's 9 or 10 years old, and so we're trying to simplify his swing, so that when he does make contact, one, the swing's just smoother, so you're going to get better exit as the ball's going to go further. But when he does switch to wood bats, if your swing is not, I would say dialed in is probably a good way to describe it. If your swing's not dialed in, like those balls that you're hitting out of the infield as an 8 or 9 year old with a metal bat, a height fire or something like that, you're never going to do with a wood bat.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard for me to go into detail about it just because I'm so used to swinging wood. I really never swung metal unless I was swinging middle school or high school.
Right.
So for me, it was just like, oh, it's just another bat. I never thought anything of it. I didn't really have a lot mechanically wrong with my swing, so it wasn't like, oh, I need to fix my swing to swing good with wood. I just swung wood and swung well with it.
Hey, you know what? I think it's a good thing. I think start early because you have to have a good swing in order to make the contact. I've got a young boy, and he's got a small wood bat, and that's what we hit. And I started out hitting walnuts, so keep the ball small and keep the bat wood, and you're gonna get a good swing in doing that. Talk a bit about partnerships. You talked about you have 6 organizations that you are now partnering with. What type of partnerships are you looking for, and how do they get in touch with you, Jake? Or I'm sorry, Gabriel.
Yeah, so we're the official wood bat provider for 5-Star Mid-South, 5-Star Coastal, Dirtbags Mid-South here in Lebanon, Tennessee, Westside Warriors baseball now, Texas Black Sox, and I'm missing one. Is that it? It was 5 or 6. I'm missing an organization. Yeah, we're partnering with 6 organizations. Okay. We're looking to add a 7th this year. But basically what I do is, or they can come to me and say, hey, we want to do a wood bat partnership. We negotiate price. A lot of it's dependent on the number of players that they have. And then from there, basically what we do is, once we've agreed on a price and a number of bats per player, it could be 1, it could maybe 1 with the option for 2. Sometimes it's just 2 bats per player, which is a pretty compelling offer because kids break wood bats. So that's a pretty compelling offer. They tack on our bat fee to their already pre-existing player fee. And then once we get a check, we fulfill their order. They have their bats by May 1st in time for the summer season.
That's awesome. Before we go, what are some of the mistakes that organizations, travel teams make when they're looking at the wood bats? What are some of the things that maybe they need to be aware of that maybe you can help through? Maybe that's not even an option for a partnership, but some of the advice that you might be able to give to people when they're looking at wood bats and kind of fulfilling or bringing value to the players.
I'd say the majority of the big companies that are selling retail bats and say Academy or Dick's Sporting Goods or even off their website, it's not the same quality of wood that the major league players are getting. So you're paying $200, $210, $220 for a wood bat that, even the companies would say isn't worth $200. It's a way for them to make money because they are a business. And I'd say, be very careful with, the companies that you choose to work with and the terms of those agreements, because you don't want to be in for a deal where you're paying $150 for a bat and the quality of wood just isn't there. And I go back to Hildabrand Bat Company. That's one of the differentiators that we have is all of our wood bats are professional grade birch. it's as close to the same quality of wood that the major leaguers are getting at, a fraction of the price that you'd get for a custom bat on any of these companies' websites.
That's great. That's great. Gabriel, one last thing. Give us your elevator pitch. This being the Pitch Podcast, tell us. We're caught with you at a travel team organization, and maybe at a training facility. You're able to have 30 seconds with an owner. What's your pitch?
Yeah, I mean, if you're a travel baseball organization owner, or even a coach that's looking to potentially partner with a wood bat company for high quality customized wood bats, Hildabrand Bat Company is the way to go. We cater to organizations. We know how organizations are run, and to us, you're not a number.
I love it.
So,
Gabriel, I appreciate the opportunity to have you on today. Excited to learn about your organization. Gabriel is in the book. You can find him at Gabriel Hildebrandt. He's also Hildabrand Bat Company. We've got a profile for both his company as well as him personally. Make sure to check that out by downloading the app today on your Apple or Android, Google Play. You can also find us on Baseball Blue Book on X, Instagram, Facebook. We're on LinkedIn, and we'll point you to everything that you need to get in touch with Gabriel. Gabriel, thank you very much for being on the pitch. You have a great day.
thank you for having me.